The views and opinions expressed by the guests of Sasquatch Experience do not necessarily reflect the opinion of the hosts, sponsors, or affiliates of the Sasquatch Experience. As always, listener discretion is advised.
911, what are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
Does a legend walk among us, lurking in the forests of our world?
Did you see what it was? Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my central light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man or something that looks like a man. I don't know what it was.
For over 15 years, we've talked with scientists, researchers, investigators, and witnesses, trying to gain insight and proof around the existence of this mysterious entity.
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sir?
Zia!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh. Okay, hang on.
He's right...
Is he in your yard, sir?
Yeah, God, he's big.
Okay, what's he doing in your yard?
He's looking at me.
Join us as we continue into the investigation of the Sasquatch Experience.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to tonight's special episode of the Sasquatch Experience. We have two very special guests for you tonight, MK Davis and Don Monroe. Forgive me, I'm a little tongue-tied. MK, you there, sir?
Yes, I am.
Okay, welcome to tonight's show, fellas.
Well, welcome, guys.
Thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Henry, we're going to turn the show over to you now, and why don't you tell us a little bit about our guests?
Well, M.K. Davis is an amateur astronomer and former NASA employee, and he has worked on the Patterson-Gimlin film for nearly 10 years, and he has done amazing work on it. He's a member of the GCBRO, that's Gulf Coast Bigfoot Research Association. He's also a member of the American Bigfoot Society. Don Monroe is a kind of a world explorer and adventurer. He's been researching Bigfoot for... How long have you been researching Bigfoot, Don?
Well, full-time, I can't say 50 years, but 50 years running with part-time included in the last 15 years solid.
Okay, that's great.
Wow.
Wow. That's awesome. And Don has kind of been kind of hush-hush up until recently. Has come forward with, he found, matter of fact, Don, could you tell us the story of this hand of unknown origin that Tom Biscardi now has?
Hello. Anyway, that hand is still obscure, and the total knowledge of the hand is not divulged. We don't know all of it yet. I have some things I haven't brought forth that are still hearsay about it. So Biscardi was turned over the hand by me in March, April this year. I came back from Australia, and I had it for almost 3.5 years and couldn't get any scientific help with it. People would look at it and wouldn't put a name on it. They wouldn't put opinion beyond wow, unusual. Can't tell you what it is. Looks human. Can't be human. Looks bare. Who knows? Still, that's still pretty much the consumption. Yeah, what I said about the whole thing. But what we did, we had DNA checked on it, tried to. And Biscardi, of course, took it. And he went ahead and took the the hand from me, and I gave him permission to go about and do what he could with it. He has finances and the time and the contact to do it, so he's running it now for DNA as he can and with scientific help. And so far, we've had nobody come forth with the conclusion of what it is, and we've had an anatomist look at it. Dr. Reese in Idaho went over it thoroughly, and we made X-rays, and it's been shared with the community out there, the Bigfoot community, pretty much. I've been ridiculed for what I haven't said about it. I can't put a name on it and won't, but I will say it's very unusual. It seems to match some of the casts I've taken in caves a little bit, enough that it's raised eyebrows. Holy smoke, they say. Mm-hmm. And we don't know, but it's very different. You can see it on the internet on the Biscardi show. In fact, www.searchingforbigfoot.com. Tom Biscardi show shows it. And
right.
It's a lot about it on there.
Yeah. Don, I have a question. Didn't Dr. Jeff Meldrum also examine the hand and determine it to be a bear paw?
He has never determined with a final word. He says he opts for bear paw.
Oh, okay.
Earlier on, I went to his laboratory some months ago this year, and we discussed the X-rays. He never seen the hand physically himself in his hand.
Oh, okay.
And he never saw the physical flesh and bone of it. He never did. But he did say at that time, not to quote his conclusions, but he did say at that time that they have some gray matter at that time, but now he's opt for bear. Well, opt doesn't mean it's been proven to be bear.
Right.
And the police I got it from originally, I got the Montana Police Force. They went through it thoroughly with their forensic and all their people in the hospital, radiologists and so on, and no one could find out what it was. They didn't know. And that's why I was brought into the whole program in the first place. And
okay. And apparently they found it at the dump. Is that correct?
Well, the story was up to what it was. They didn't find it. It was brought to the police station from the dump. Somebody had found the hand and anonymously brought it in without a name on it, and more or less like a drop off the doorstep kind of thing. And it's not a case history in the police files. There's no murder involved. There's nobody suspect a murder or any of those kind of things initially to get that suspicion going. So they ran it in case it was human, and they couldn't decide what it was. They decided it wasn't that, but they couldn't decide what it was. And so when I first went there, I talked to him 150 miles away on the phone, and from descriptions, I brought a cast with me, a plaster cast, that I thought sounded kind of like it. I put it on the desk that day in front of the officer, and he got red in the face and wanted to know how in the world I knew what he had. I said, I don't know what you have. He said, but it looks just like it. And I said, well, he got it out of the freezer then, and then the case history thing, and we were both shocked by the whole thing. I took a picture at the same time with the officer with me of the initial side-by-side showing and the viewing, and then I went ahead and had X-rayed by professionals, and the X-rays exist. They were posted on the internet a while back. I'm not sure they still are, once upon a time. And that's basically the story. The story is pretty obscure. It's still going around. It's been up and down the coast from Washington and Canada border down the Mexico border, all up and down the coast and inland as well. And no one's yet put a name on it for sure. Okay.
Well, sounds very interesting. Now, Tom Biscardi has been in the news this week, apparently searching for the Sasquatch over in Arizona. And on his radio program the other night, he mentioned that he and his group ran across another Bigfoot organization in Texas and apparently caught them hoaxing. It's a little bit of and what he did, he kind of criticized those who are hoaxers. And I have to tread on careful ground here. It's a bit of the pot calling the kettle black, because Biscardi is an alleged hoaxer. And it's a little bit of the pot calling the kettle black that he would criticize someone else for being a hoaxer when he has been accused of being a hoaxer himself.
I was reluctant to go on with him at all with his hand, but he's been very diligent and fair about it so far, in my estimation. He's come forth, and I went to Biscardi knowing he had a name at that time with some ridicule that he had faced, and I didn't take a side. I just remained neutral. Still do with him. I say nothing about him, good, bad, or ugly. He's doing things that the other guys aren't doing. He's out there going from coast to coast with lots of money behind it and lots of time spent that most people can't spend. My efforts are limited to about 75 square miles. He goes 75,000 square miles, you might say. So we got to give him credit where credit's due. The man's out there doing something, investigating. I spent 3 months with Tom Biscardi on expeditions as a conscripted member, not a team member exactly 100%, but I went along as, I'd say, an advisor of sorts. Mm-hmm. I cast many casts for him and plaster casts and so on without opinion. It's his expedition.
Okay, well, I mean, that's fine, but we don't want to spend the whole show talking about Tom Biscardi. MK.
Yeah.
We are very fascinated by your work on the Patterson-Gimlin film. I think you've done an immense amount of work on it.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
What do you say to those, even within the Bigfoot community, who believe the film is a hoax?
Well, I'll say just give it a little more time and and there should be some more known on it that's a lot more conclusive. Okay. The Patterson film is still yielding tremendous amounts of information, and in recent months it's yielded some critical pieces of information that deals with what it is on the film, and hopefully it'll in some form be made available to the public here without too much time going by.
Sounds great. MK, how did you get started on studying the Patterson-Gimlin film?
I got started around 10 years ago, like you said there. It was I came across a couple of really good frames from the film. That's what I've got this background in astrophotography. I've taken I own a large telescope, and I take a lot of space photos, or I was taking them at the time. And space photos is sort of a unique type of photography that requires you to know your films and their peculiar characteristics, and because you do timed exposures and you're trying to photograph very faint things in the night sky. So I knew a pretty good bit about that sort of thing, and one of the photographs that I saw had been filtered in such a way that you would filter an astronomy photograph, and I knew that whoever had dealt with that film was trying to get the most out of it, and they were and they knew what they were doing. So I got really curious about it, and I said, well, you can't really get a good frame like this, a really crisp, clear frame like I was seeing here, from a bad film. So I knew that what I had been seeing on television was probably not the best there was, and that there probably was a much better version of it out there. So I began a search for it, and by and large, I've been pretty correct on that there are much better versions of the film. And when you get close to those much better versions, you get a lot of answers from it. So it's been gratifying to me to the direction it's gone, because I was prepared for it to go either way. If I saw a zipper or saw something like that, a rope or a clasp or an object, I was more than prepared to say that I did or announce it or in some way. But
right.
It didn't happen that way. So the film has actually stood up really well.
We have some questions coming in from listeners, folks. Okay, MK, a question for you, sir.
Okay.
This is from Corey. Corey asks, there's been a few people saying that there are other creatures in the woods behind the subject in the Patterson-Gimlin film. Has he ever looked at that and tried to isolate that other creature?
I have taken a look at a lot of people will send me photographs, and they'll just sort of place an arrow or point to the place where they think there might be another one. And I really have not been able to confirm that there is another one. I suspect that there were more than one for a lot of reasons, but photographically, as far as what's in the film, now there's one place prior to the filming of the creature where Patterson puts the camera on the hillside for just a split second and holds it there. Something got his attention on the hillside, and I animated those two frames and carefully aligned them and blinked them. And when I did so, something's moving there. There's no question about it. Something's moving on the hillside in the shadows, but you can see it.
Wow.
I can't identify it.
Thank you, Corey, for that great question. We have another question here from Bill Green for Don Monroe and M.K. Davis. Hey, Don and M.K., have you both heard of recent Sasquatch activity around the Bluff Creek area? Thanks, Bill Green.
Well, yeah, the Bluff Creek area is still a hot spot as far as I'm concerned, and I don't, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, I don't think that it's that way year-round. The Bluff Creek is in a range of mountains there, and it's sort of positioned sort of midway between some of the higher peaks and some of the lower elevations. In my opinion, from what I could determine, that perhaps they move in and out from the lower elevations through Bluff Creek to the higher elevations, according to the weather patterns and things. So that's my opinion, but of course, this is where he filmed that film, so this is one of the best spots on Earth to go looking for a Sasquatch. The odds are stacked against you no matter where you go, but I'd say they're much better there than most places.
A quick add to that, we went down in 2005, MK and I and a party of 5 people, to validate the site on the date of the anniversary, October 20th last year. We found that day a brand new, well, not brand new that day, but in the vicinity of within 50 feet of where she went across, in fact, 50 yards the most where she crosses in the picture we found a brand new track that's been there for not more than 3 or 4 days in the mulch. I took the cast, and it shows the outline. It's not definite on the features on you can't see the torso or the foot parts, but you can see the outline of the foot very well. And one more foot we found in the same vicinity in the gravel and the sand. We didn't have enough plaster to take that one. We took pictures of it. And also, more important than that, we found a twisted tree that's done in a certain way that take time to tell you about that indicated they were there recently. And that recently means the last few weeks before we got there. So they're still there.
Wow.
Now, I will say that the last time that I went, and I think I told you over the phone, Henry, that maybe over the chat room, that when I was there, we had an incident occurred. I was there with Derek Laurie, Sean Freeze, and Sean had left us, Derek and I, off at the bridge, and we had hiked in. It's about 2 miles from the bridge to the Patterson site, and we hiked in there. When we got there, Derek was setting his camera up on a tripod, and something just, I guess you'd call it a wood knock. It was a really loud rap against the tree, not more than 50 feet from me, just across a thicket. Actually, it was on the hillside that you see in the film. Of course, the sandbar itself has grown up some fairly thick stuff. I wasn't able to see it, but I could hear it, and I could hear it walking. And it hit a tree so hard that you could hear it reverberate. Wow. Sort of ring, I know in the old days when I was coming up, there were some movies called Walking Tall, and the sheriff there carried this big stick of green wood, and they always call them Buford sticks. Mm-hmm. And that's what it reminded me of. It was a real dense piece of wood that when it hit the tree, it kind of rang out a little bit. It was almost close enough to hear that, and of course it moved on away, and that was it. So we didn't. But that was at the Patterson site, so there's a sort of a circumstantial bit of evidence there. But however, we didn't see anything. So.
Wow. Now you've been to the PG Film site, what, 3-4 times now?
I've been to the site, the actual site, twice.
Oh, okay.
I've been to the Bluff Creek area 4 times.
Yeah, from what I understand, that area is only accessible a few times out of the year.
Oh yeah, you're correct. That it's in order to get into the Patterson site, you have to go over some peaks, some higher places, and these higher places maintain snowpacks late into the year. Sean and Derek went there, I think it was late May or early June, and had to shovel snow for about an hour in order to get their vehicle through.
Best time is August to October and November.
Wow.
But nevertheless, it gives you an idea of how inaccessible it is, and there's pretty much nobody goes back in there. The last camp is maintained by the Forest Service, but it's they only come to check on that camp once a month. And other than that, there's hardly any. Now you can wait till like the better parts of the year, like in August, September, when it's warmer, and there are a few people that go back in there and camp, but Bigfooters mostly, not a lot of people.
The Patterson site is very much like much of Oregon, much of California woods, and much of Washington, parts of Idaho and Montana. It looks very much like it. Well, it's Coast Range, and it's very much treed the same way, indigenous trees and pines and so on, ponderosa and everything else, but it's just very much like those places I mentioned. Very much so. Deep, deep, deep gorges, valleys, and beautiful mountains. Lots of natural food.
Yeah. MK.
Yeah.
How did you find the Patterson site?
It was actually Derek Laurie sort of put me on it. Derek had been there with it during the Willow Creek Symposium. He had gone and found it, or what he thought was it, and he took me that way, and I knew it as soon as I saw it. There was no doubt in my mind.
Now, I've heard that Daniel Perez has GPS coordinates for that, Henry. You know anything about that, Henry?
Yes, he does. He has the GPS coordinates for it, which is the approximate area. If you look on Google Earth, it shows you one area, but I've shown it to MK, and he says, well, I don't think that's the actual site. That's further down from where it shows on Google Earth. But it is in Del Norte County, California.
Well, they're not that far apart from where Daniel says it is and where I say it is, but I have an enormous amount of respect for Daniel. and I don't really want to argue about it or nothing like that. But I didn't feel like there was any doubt in my mind when I once having seen the lay of the land and everything that was there that was the site. The road that Bob Gimlin said that the creature crossed across, it was a road that they had pushed in there with caterpillars in order to get some demolition crews in there to blow up some of these big giant log jams after that big flood in '64. That road is still there, and it's still right on the end of the bar where she walked and where she got climbed on the road. A lot of the trees that are in the film are still there. The bar, the sandbar itself is still there, and the creek meanders. It cuts across the sandbar in a different place, but it's even changed since last year. When I went this year, it had cut across again. So that sort of thing is always going on there. But the stumps are there. They're in the film. I mean, it's just multiple points of interest that are in the film or they're at that place. And I feel very comfortable in saying this site. And of course, I won't split hairs with anybody.
I have another question for you here, MK. This is from Kevin. How many encounters have there been at the Patterson-Gimlin site since the film? Does anyone know?
How many what?
How many encounters, Sasquatch encounters or sightings have been at the Patterson site?
Well, I really don't know. I don't know how many people have been back in there and actually had an encounter. I know that people have sort of gone in there, ever since the filming, now and again. But there, it's a big effort to go in there. It's a huge effort, and it's not an easy thing to do. So they don't go down there and stampeding down there, and they have to have some special reason to go or whatever. But I don't really know. I know that the area in Bluff Creek is had a long history of this sort of thing going on prior to the filming. The Onion Mountain area, the Hoopa Indians at the reservation there told me that the Onion Mountain area was an area that these things, pretty much stayed around for a good part of the time. And Bob Gimlin told me that he had actually gone to check out tracks on Onion Mountain when they had the encounter and filmed it. They had come down and went down into the creek. And, of course, Bluff Creek is a few miles away from Onion Mountain, down below it. So I really, it's when you're talking about ranging and the way these things apparently can move so quickly, I'd say that the whole area right there is just, one big hot spot. And if you're going to have an encounter, I'd say that's one of the places in the world that you could actually up your odds.
Migrate with the seasonal food, too. They migrate the seasonal food a lot toward what's ripe and what's ready to eat, including the game. The flora and fauna there is very important to their diet.
Yeah. MK, how hard do you think it would be for someone if they were going to pull off a hoax? How hard or how easy would it be to get into that area with a costume on the back of a horse just to hoax a film in an isolated area like that, when they could have gone further down the creek or further up the creek?
Well, I mean, I don't know the mind of a hoaxer and how it works. I mean, sometimes it just it baffles me, what they're up to and why. But it would seem to me like it'd be an awful lot of work and hard trouble to go that far back into one of the wilder places in the United States in order to film. I mean, a guy in a suit, which could, against any backdrop, could be done anywhere. It could be done in your backyard if you have some, stuff growing back there, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference, So I don't understand why anyone would want to go through that much effort. And not only that, it's more than just effort. There's an element of risk to going back there. I mean, anything can happen. Your horse can go lame on you, and you have to walk out. I mean, it's like 20-something miles to the nearest paved road. So, and it's really rough country. It's got cougar in it. It's got bear in it. It's got poisonous snakes in it when it's warm. I saw a cinnamon bear when I was there. I guess one of the California golden bears. It was a blonde-looking bear. bigger than a black bear, certainly, have really long claws and long hair on its back. A small black bear came right through the camp.
Wow.
So why would you go to a place where you could get yourself in a heap of trouble to film something you could film really close to home?
That's true, yeah. I mean, because Patterson could have filmed it right there around Yakima if he'd wanted to, because there are some wild areas around Yakima.
Yeah, I agree with that.
What is your opinion of the Greg Long book and the Bob Hieronymus controversy, and how much damage do you think it did to the credibility of the film?
Well, the film will speak for itself eventually. I think it actually helped the film in certain ways because it got people who had access to the film, it got them to reconsidering the film again. The film had all but died as far as interest in it. There was always a small amount of debate going on there, but by and large, until this book come around, nobody was doing too much with it. I sort of credit Hieronymus and Greg Long both with my being able to get copies of the frames, that were so good because of the controversy. And there's an old saying that says, when you stir the pot, a lot of times good things boil over. And I think if there's anything good that came out of that book, it did stir the pot. And but that book is not even going to be a footnote in history whenever the entire data can be extrapolated from that film and made public. Nobody will even think of them.
Personally, I feel that when Greg Long wrote that book, instead of discrediting the Patterson film, I think he really discredited himself. There's a lot of half-truths in that book, and, people might argue and say it was researched very well, but I don't think it was. I think it made a lot of assumptions. It didn't answer any questions. It left a lot of questions open. And I have a real problem with people saying the Patterson film is a hoax. For one, the reason you stated, MK, they went through a heck of a lot of effort if it was a hoax to make it, when Henry said they could easily have done it in Yakima. Number two is it has yet to be reproduced, with duplicate quality. I mean, the reproductions that they've tried have been god-awful, don't even come close. And, the great Hollywood still hasn't even been able to do it yet. So when they do, and if they can, I'll shut up. But until then, the proof is in the pudding.
Right. And even the recent Sci-Fi Investigates program where they showed this idiot, Boston Rob Mariano, trying to run across a meadow in a obviously fake-looking gorilla suit. He couldn't even come close.
If you weren't in the chat room with us that night, you heard Henry screaming, "I hope you break your leg! I hope you break your leg!" It was really quite funny.
When we were watching that, yes.
I'll say this: that a lot of people have tried to get mileage out of that film. I mean, Bob Ramos was not the only one. Greg Long's not the only one. But my sincere hope is that when the better images finally do make it in a coherent way, in a coherent presentation where the public can see them articulated into a stabilized version of the film and all of its goodness and quality, that it won't be such fodder for that type of unscrupulous people again. They'll be afraid of it, and they'll go on to some other subject or genre, In a nutshell, as far as Greg Long's book, and I'll say this is my statement on that book, he doesn't let the truth stand in the way of a good story.
We did have a caller from the 248 area code, but I lost him, so if they'll come back, and if you're listening, caller, please try again. We'll try to get you this time without incident. Have a lot of comments going on about Greg Long's book, which I won't read. Because I don't want to, hurt anybody's feelings.
This is a family show.
This is a family show. This is rated E for everyone. The comments are hilarious, so if anybody's interested, I'll email them to them later. They are great. This is what the show's about, getting the truth out there, and if you don't like the truth, tough.
Yep.
Okay, here we go. Caller from the 248 area code. Caller, you're on with the Sasquatch Experience. Sean Forker, Henry May, M.K. Davis, and Don Monroe. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Not too bad.
Hi. I just have a Bigfoot experience I'd like to report.
Okay.
Okay. It was about 3 years ago. We were in a place called Fenton, Michigan at Seven Oaks Park, and we were camping. And I was outside. I was using the restroom, and I seen a shadow behind me just kind of like run across the water. Have you guys ever seen that? Like when you see like a shadow jump in front of you?
I think so.
All right. Well, I looked behind me. I didn't know what it was. I got kind of scared. I turned around, and I started heading back to camp. And then the next thing I know, there was a rock hitting me in the back of the head.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's the last thing I remember. And I wake up in a cave, and there's hair all over my body. I don't know why. And, I wake up, and there's milk in my mouth.
Well, I'd recommend you take a shower and brush your teeth. Thank you very much, sir.
No, I'm not doing it.
And that caller's gone for the night.
Sorry, folks. We get crank callers from time to time. Actually, that's our first one, but anyway.
Okay.
Is that one of the hazards of live radio?
Oh, definitely.
Unfortunately, and caller, if you're still interested, please submit your sighting to AmericanBigfootSociety.com. Report your sighting. We'll be glad to take it then. All right, moving back to the show. Sorry about wasting your time there, fellas. And yours too, listeners.
There are some people who say Jeff's having this kind of an interest is a waste of time. So, it hasn't proved to be that way at all. And I'd like to say, to the listeners out there that, if you're sort of a novice at this or just got a passive interest and you think you might want to look into it a little bit, it's been very, very rewarding for me. It's been entertaining, rewarding. I think it's important. I don't think, this is not chasing the wind. The odds are stacked against you, certainly, but it's not chasing the wind. The possibilities are out there that anyone, it's a level playing field, and anyone can be the one to make an important discovery. So if you want to enter into some kind of a pursuit or a hobby or a profession or whatever level you want to get into it, this is one of the more interesting ones you'll ever do, and if you do succeed, you will have done something very, very important. So there we go.
A bit of Don Quixote blood is in me, and I think it's important to chase windmills and giants and whatever you want to do, because this is a humanity thing. We're going to try and prove in time these are humans, that they're something similar to humans, and if so, we can protect them. And what better effort can you make on humanity?
Gentlemen, for some of our callers who are actually, our listeners rather, who are new to the Sasquatch field, Henry, MK, why don't you take us back to that day Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin took that famous film?
Oh, well, okay. This is how it started out. Okay, what happened was Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin were up in the Mount St. Helens area searching for tracks, and that's in Washington State. And when they got home, Roger, his wife, had received a call from Al Hodson down in Willow Creek.
All right, Henry, please go back to the story.
Okay, anyway, Roger had just gotten home, and Al Hodson had called his wife and left a message that there were tracks in the Bluff Creek area and that they should get down there right away. So Roger and Bob left Yakima, I would say probably right around October 1st, somewhere in there. And they rode out of the Bluff Creek area every day. They were in the Six Rivers National Forest, Del County, California. And they were looking for tracks, but they never found any. And they were really looking for them, but they never found any. And they ran the roads with Bob's truck and looked for tracks. Never could find any. Never could find any sign in the area. So eventually, now MK, you might have to help me on this. Whose idea was it to go to that particular area? Was it Bob Gimlin's or Roger Patterson's?
I'm a little unclear about that. I know that when they went to the area, they had previously been up on Onion Mountain looking for those tracks. Those were the tracks that Al Hodson had reported. there was a water tower on top of Onion Mountain. It was new construction. They built this water tower to water the roads down. They were building these new roads in there.
Right.
And the fresh dirt under the water tower had some tracks on it. That's what Bob Gimlin told me. They really went down there to look at.
Yeah.
Then they went on down, to the lower elevations where Bluff Creek is, and decided to go up and down. They'd actually been, the way that they had the encounter, they had already been that way once before, a day or two earlier. And they just, went back through there again. And this thing was there.
Yep.
So that's sort of typical of what, if you've ever hunted, that's how a lot of people find, some of the game. They'll go through an area, then they'll come back through it again, and it won't be nothing there once, and then the second time it circles around, they circle around, or they happen not to be there, and you go leave, and they come back down into the creek, or whatever, that type of thing, So I know that Bob Gimlin went out by himself. Okay, he came back to camp because his horse threw a shoe.
Mm-hmm.
Had his horse not thrown a shoe, he would not have come back to camp. But anyway, he comes back to camp, gets with Patterson. Patterson, let's go down this way where we've been before. Now, they actually left the bridge where Derek Laurie and myself left the bridge, exact same bridge. And they went down in there with horses, and it's pretty tough going, even with horses. It was after that '64 flood. There was a lot of logs and driftwood and all kinds of stuff in there. Of course, the mountain, the rocks and stuff in the bed of the stream too, are pretty rough. So they went down in there, and it probably took them a while. It was 2 miles back in there where they actually had the encounter. But it's I don't see anything suspicious about it at all. It just sounds like two guys that are trying to locate a set of tracks to put in their documentary.
Mm-hmm.
The tracks had already been reported that they were there, and they were filming the stock footage and looking for those tracks, and they just were fanning out through the area. I don't see anything suspicious at all.
Oh no, I don't either, and it wouldn't be anything wrong with it, with them doing that. Anyway, after about 3 weeks, they'd been looking and looking for tracks, never found any. And then on that morning, when Bob Gimlin came back to camp, Roger was gone. But that could mean anything. Greg Long took that to mean, oh well, Roger must have been hoaxing. Roger must have gone off to meet with the guy, with the guy who was going to be in the gorilla suit. Which I don't think so. But anyway, they finally went to this area where Bob had told Roger that he'd gone to this particular area, and Roger said, well, let's go there, let's see if there's anything there. So they go there, and they ride around. They found a log, a jam tree, a jam, almost like a crow's nest, logs jammed together. They ride around that bend, and right there, standing by the creek, some have said squatting by the creek, but no, it was not squatting. Bob Gimlin has been adamant that it was standing by the creek. There was a large female creature with obvious breasts. By the way, they did not film the creature right when they saw it. They filmed it shortly thereafter because the horses were just going crazy and rearing up and everything, and they even lost, I believe, one of the horses. They lost one of the horses. One of the horses took off. It was Roger's, because Roger had been thrown off the horse. There have been some conflicting stories over the years that the horse fell down on him. Well, that's impossible because horses are very heavy, and it would have broken his leg. So I doubt the horse fell on his leg. Anyway, Roger was scrambling to get his movie camera out. They did not have video cameras back then. It was a film camera, movie camera. And then he got the shots and took the film. And you can see in several frames of the film, he's stumbling and he's falling and running in several frames of the film. And Bob Gimlin is there, and he's watching this. And he pulled out his rifle, but he did not point it at the creature. He has never said he pointed it at the creature, from what I understand. And MK, you probably back me up on that.
As far as pointing at the creature, as far as his testimony says, Of course, there were just those two there, so, you just have to take their word for it. It's like a lot of things, when you got two people there, and a lot of times, even though they were both side by side, and two people never tell the story the same way. And I think when you have hoax in mind, if you're hoax on the brain, so to speak, and you're straining out gnats, any little difference between the testimony, it seemed to be, as indication that they were hoaxing or whatever, but it's really quite normal, and I think I would be a little red flag would go up if you didn't find that. If the stories were absolutely right down the line, exactly the same, then a little red flag would go up.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And one thing that I should point out, Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin didn't just film a creature. They filmed a creature that left tracks. And in fact, MK, I believe, has found a few places in the film where it appears there are tracks on the ground.
Yeah, I've actually found more since I discussed that with you, Henry. I've got probably 7 or 8 different places where I've seen where
wow,
made tracks. It's interesting to me, and not a lot of people realize it, that the first walk, there's 3 walk sequences in the film, and I call them sequences because the camera stops and restarts. Okay, so the very first walk sequence, when she's first, turned around from them and went across the sandbar, she's walking very, very differently than she walks in the other walk sequences. She walks as if she were a little unsure, and then she walks as if she was not aware that they were following her. Her head is down, her shoulders are stooped, her arms are forward, and her head's and face are pointing down at the sandbar as she's walking. And she walks with rather only a small amount of arm swing on the right, and then hardly any arm swing on the left. And then when that part of the filming ends and she resumes walking again, the camera stops and starts again. She's out on the sandbar in a much more open style. The head's up, the arms are swinging, and the legs are stretched out. So the film is probably the longest 1 minute of film in history. There's so much going on in this film for an analyst to look at. If you're gonna, really look at the nuts and bolts and all the little nuances of a film and analyze it, it takes a while to do it. And this film is so full of stuff that 10 years later, it's still yielding data.
Yeah, exactly. And one other interesting thing is that about the film is Bob Hieronymus claimed that Roger Patterson was up on horseback filming this. Well, MK found something interesting in the film. He found where Patterson may have accidentally filmed his own boot prints. MK, could you expound on that, please?
Oh, yeah, that's definitely in the film. It's not on the copies. It's just on the original. And the reason I say that is all the copies were cropped. At wherever they had it done, they cropped to make the creature appear larger in the film. The original film that came out of his camera was a good bit wider field, and the creature was smaller. But because it was wider field, you see some things around the periphery of the frames that you don't see in the cropped versions. And one of them is Roger Patterson's boot print. Roger was trying to follow the creature and could not get an angle on it because of this log jam. So he just backtracks himself, and allows the camera to swing down. When he does that, it pans the ground behind him and picks up his own boot print, a sharp-pointed cowboy boot.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Something else that kind of was a little controversial about almost 2 years ago was MK had found where this creature apparently stumbled or bent down or went down or whatever. Could you discuss that, please, MK?
Well, there's no question in my mind that's what occurred. I mean, it's either all the way down on all fours or either very near so. Now, when I say all fours, that does not indicate that I'm saying that it went quadrupedal. That's not what I'm saying. I mean, we can go down on all fours if we stumble or whatever, we catch ourselves, or if we pick something up, we go into that same position. We don't know what occurred there because there's a small rise or spit of sand, or I call it a hill, but some people took issue with that. It's between you and the creature, between the camera and the creature, and it covers up from about maybe just above the knees toward the thigh down. So when it goes over, you see its rear end definitely gets pretty clear there. I don't know what happened there, but that was the end of the first walk sequence. I mean, that's when it ended, right there, when it was down. So when the camera resumed filming, she was up and out on the sandbar, walking up, in the open style. So what took place there, we may never know.
MK, what do you say to people when, mainly skeptics, when they tell us believers in the Patterson film that we see what we want to see in the film? And I think this question directly applies to your work because you've been one of the few who have actually taken the time and analyzed this film. I mean, really taken a good look at it. What do you say to people who use that as an argument?
You talking about seeing what you want to see in it?
That we see what we want to see in the film, yes.
No, I disagree with that entirely. This film's better than that. This is not a film that fits in that category at all. I mean, there are some gray areas. Yeah, there's gray areas in anything, but by and large, this film is it's not open to interpretation. You know what I mean? It's that good. There's certain things that you see going on with this creature or whatever it is, this subject. I call it a subject. Okay, that are beyond dispute. And then when you get the better versions of the film and you see these things going on, there's no point. The argument is moot. You just if you want to argue some of the finer points about some of the vaguer things, that's fine. But some of the broader things that you can see easily. Well, every day of our lives, we trust our eyes. I mean, we go out into the road, we look both ways, and we go across the street. We don't think that, am I really seeing a car? Or am I seeing a car that's not there? Or am I seeing something? Could it be a car coming that I don't see? We trust our eyes. So we don't live our lives as if everything was disputable. And this film is much like that. It's clear enough and good enough that what you see is what you get. And like I said, it continues to yield data, but the major things, once you have seen the real good versions of this film, there's not a lot of people that walk away prepared to argue about it. It is what it is. So my point's been, I guess, for the last 4 or 5 years, that Patterson took a really good film. And when I hear people say that he took a poor film or a fuzzy, grainy film, I take issue with that. Patterson went in there with theater-grade stock, and he took film in broad daylight at fairly close range. You know what I mean? So the film's a good film. Now, what to do with it? Well, we'll see.
Right, and Dr. Jeff Meldrum, he was just on NPR Science Friday, this past Friday, and the host actually called the PG film a grainy black and white film shot on 8mm. Now, anybody who knows anything about the film knows its color and knows it's not grainy, and that is shot on 16mm film. So, sometimes, the media gets it wrong. Well, actually, they get it wrong a lot of the time, But anyway, that's just something we got to live with, I think.
Well, not necessarily, Henry. We may have to live with it for a while. But right now, the film is in a state of flux. I have a really good version of it that could do an awful lot of good toward educating the public. We'll have to wait and see what the near future holds for the public education regarding this film. Once people see it, now people are not dumb. They believe their eyes. They go out and function every day trusting their eyes. And when they see certain things that they know are biologically sound, then they'll recognize it on the film, and there won't be anybody that could convince them otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Now, we have a little bit of an announcement to make here. We understand that MK and Don both are going to be part of a movie. which is being produced by a fellow named Pat Holdbrook, who used to host a program on Bigfoot Central. And, of course, MK and Don were the most recent hosts of Bigfoot Central.
One of my favorite radio shows.
Yeah, mine too. I used to tune in every week. And we know that MK, he kind of alerted me to this project several months ago. And the project, well, MK, maybe you could tell us a little more about it.
Well, it's going to be a little bit of Hollywood, but it's also going to be a lot of the Patterson film, and it's going to be about the Patterson film, and the star of the show is going to be the Patterson film, but basically it's going to give the public an opportunity to view the film in its highest quality, and also to be able to have some expert attention drawn to it in certain areas of what's going on. And when that happens, we hope that, like we said, we hope that the public will be a lot better educated. It'll be entertaining. It's going to be drama. It's going to be the facts about the film, and it's going to be presented in a we hope in a very entertaining way. The name of the movie is going to be Catch Me If You Can.
Catch me if you can. Okay.
We have a caller here from the 516 area code. Caller, you're on the air with the Sasquatch Experience. Sean Forker, Henry May, M.K. Davis, and Don Monroe. Go ahead, caller.
Yeah, hi, guys. How you doing? This is Mike.
Oh, that's got to be Mike.
How are you, Henry? How are you, Sean?
Hey, Mike. What's going on?
Doing great, Mike.
All right. Enjoying the show, listening in. I just had a few questions for MK.
Go ahead.
Mr. Davis, first off, just want to say I'm a great admirer of your work on the PG film. I mean, I think your work is absolutely amazing and really opens up a whole new way to look at that film shot so many years ago. And I just feel it's a shame that a lot of the people in the scientific community don't take a more serious look at your recent work on this film, because I think you would certainly open a few eyes if they're basing their opinion on the PG film on the film of 35-something years ago. That said, I was just wondering, I've always wondered, I've seen the film many times, your stabilized version. How long does something like that take you to do? I mean, I know that's got to be an immense task. It's got to be, just a ton of man hours involved in that. But I was just curious on how long does it take you to stabilize and blow up and enhance and do all the work that you did on that film. That's just an amazing volume of work you did there.
Well, thank you. It's actually it's taken me 10 years actually, but that's not all been involved in actually working on the film like that in respects to what you were talking about. But it's a lot of late nights. I'll put it like that. That's all meticulously hand done. And each one of those frames, if you saw the black and white versions, they're actually the sharpest version. And what I did was, we're there?
Yep.
Okay, what I did was simply to use some known photographic techniques for removing unsharp colors, and that's why it was redisplayed in black and white, so it wouldn't be so annoying. Because when you take a color out of a color photo, you leave you with the colors you have left are very, they're not natural. And you have a very annoying looking photo. You might be bright yellow or something, So you redisplay it in black and white, but what it does is essentially sharpens it up, crispens it, where you can see the finer things going on there. Then you take each frame, you do it that way, and then you take each frame and you actually line them up in such a way that it stabilizes the frames when you animate it. So it's meticulous work. It was hard work. I ain't going to lie about it. But it was doable, and I knew that it was doable, and I'm just hard-headed enough that if I know something can be done, there's no better way of proving it than doing it.
We have another caller here from the 786 area code. 786, you're on the air.
Yeah, I believe it in the Sasquatch. I think this is a really one.
Is there really a Sasquatch? Is that the question you're asking me?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Thank you for your call.
Really a Sasquatch? Is that what she asked?
Yes, sir.
Does she want me to answer it? Or?
Yeah, go ahead, MK.
I'll say in the sense of what's on that film that Patterson took in October of 1967, October the 20th, there was at least one. Now, logic tells you that there are probably more, but there is absolute proof that there was one. So there we go.
And all it takes is one.
Yeah.
All it takes is one.
Guys, I had another question or two, if I could.
Go ahead, Mike.
Mr. Davis, I was just wondering if you had any plans to try to present your stabilized and improved version of the film to any type of scientific forum where maybe if the very few scientists who are willing to take a serious look at something like that might possibly be able to, scrutinize it now that you've modified it to the extent you have, and maybe you might get some type of at least they might say, well, maybe it's a possibility instead of just it's outright the guy in a suit type of thing. Any plans to try to get any kind of scientific, serious look at the new improved version?
Well, yeah, it's my understanding that Dr. Meldrum gave a presentation at Stanford University for a lot of academics. It was in conjunction with the Discovery Channel, and he used a good many of my images there. So, these opportunities are coming, more and more often. If people see these things, these really good versions, and they're, they want to, it piques their interest. They want to look into it a little more. They want to say, do you have anything else? How much do you have? And Dr. Meldrum he's a pretty good medium for presenting this type of stuff because he's an academic himself, and I try to help him in any way that I can, get him the very best images possible, concentrating on the areas that his interests are the most in, and provide him with those images because I think that's important. If you're going to get the attention of academics, it really helps to be an academic yourself. So I help him any way I can.
We have another phone call here from the 786 area code. 786, you're on the air.
Hi, yeah. It's a question for Mr. Davis.
All right, MK, question for you, sir.
Okay.
Have you found any other segments of film of this Sasquatch? Is there any other films, or is this the only one?
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's the only one that I have worked on that I consider to be credible. Now I really don't like to pass judgment on other people's stuff. Not everybody's going to take a film of this quality. We're talking about something that is it's very, very hard to film a Sasquatch. Most people, when they see them, only see a glimpse of them. Just a brief flash and they're gone. Patterson, he got extremely fortunate to have a full minute of film in an open area in bright daylight like that. So it's kind of unfair to say that when somebody brings in a film and it's got sort of like a figure on it, well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I really hate to pass judgment. And the films that I've worked on, that I've helped other people with to clarify, my policy has been, and it continues to be, one of neutrality. I simply don't have an opinion at all on it. I'll try to improve the image, and if I'm able to improve the image, I'll give them their images back in an improved way, and they can make their own judgments or go get an expert to look at it or some analysis of some sort. But no, nothing has even approached the quality of the Patterson film up to this point. You always hope there will be.
We always hope, and whenever there's the next film that's billed as the newest and latest Sasquatch footage, you're always so disappointed. Well, at least I am. They're so blurry, they're so out of focus, and there's not a lot there to look at.
Yeah, that's very true.
Not a lot to look at all.
You've been listening to Sasquatch Experience. Please rate and review wherever this podcast is consumed. To share your experience, visit us on Facebook or email us, squatchexperience@gmail.com. Keep on squatching.